Hi friends, and welcome to Wondergarten. I'm Lisa, co-founder and lead teacher of the Wondergarten School and curriculum, and today I'm going to be showing you a little bit more about how you prepare your station for wet on wet watercolor. Wet on wet watercolor has been used in Waldorf early childhood classrooms for centuries now, and it's a very special way to present watercolor for your young child. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit more about how to set it up, kind of why we do it, and what you can expect and what you need. All of these supplies are included in the art supply kit you can find on our website. We have everything ready for you to make it as easy as possible. Included in there is our Strathmore watercolor paper. This is a really important piece of wet on wet watercolor. We actually soak the paper for a little bit, so if you don't get thick enough paper, it can actually dissolve. So you want to make sure you have thick, high quality watercolor paper for this activity. We also have our Wondergarten Waldorf watercolor painting board. This is a smooth board. It's really great for not only just watercolor, it cleans up really easy. It's a wonderful little workstation, but it's a really important piece of how we set the paper for our watercolor activity. We have our Strathmore liquid watercolor pigments. These are highly pigmented. This size right here will be plenty to last you through the whole year. Our watercolor paint jars and holders. These are very handy and beautiful, as well as a watercolor brush. So to begin, I'm just going to be demonstrating with red today. So already I have our watercolor paper with rounded corners. Rounded corners is something we typically do in Waldorf classrooms. It gives a softer experience for the child, makes things feel a little bit more finished. And I have a paper here soaking in this basin of water, and we soak our paper for a few minutes, and this actually helps with a lot of things. It helps the paper not only stay in place, but it also helps against curling and peeling and creates a really nice working surface. So I have my paper soaking in here already, and I'm going to start getting our pigment ready. So I'm going to use red today. And as I mentioned, this is a thick liquid watercolor that you mix with water to create your paint. So what we do is we take a little bit of this, and I know there is probably an official amount per of pigment to watercolor to water ratio, but I like to just kind of mix my own and see how we go. So you put some here in a jar and add some water, and you'll mix it up until you get the pigment to your liking. I'll test it on a little side piece of paper here. You want it to be a rich, nice color, but to still have some translucency so you can see the different hues and values of the color as you paint. So I'll mix this up here and give it a little test until that's nice. Okay, so that's a little probably too vibrant there, so I'll add a little more water to dilute it out. That's much better. So a nice balance of rich color and translucency. And then I will pour this into my watercolor cup right here and have a little water jar next to me. Then I'll get my paper ready. So we have our paper soaked, as I mentioned. Place it right on your board, and then you take your sponge here. This is also included in our kit, and you just want to kind of get this paper on the board and also wipe away any excess water that's pooling on the surface of your paper. You don't want the paint to just sit on top. You still want it to absorb into the soaked paper, and the soaked paper really lets the watercolor still kind of dance around the paper. So once you've done this, I can show you now. This is a wonderful working surface for young children. It's not going to mess around or scooch around at all, and it's very nice and prepared for them. So once you have your station all set up, you have your water and your pigment, then we'll get started painting. Now in Waldorf tradition, we typically present watercolor with a little bit of a painting story. A lot of people get confused about what this is, but this is really just a way to show the children how our painting can become alive. And it just demonstrates, it draws them in, but it doesn't have to be any perfect script or anything. It just kind of comes from the heart. So a little example could be Thumpkin the gnome put on his red hat, and he began to rake the red leaves in the autumn garden. And surrounded by the red leaves, he looked up to his tall birch tree and heard a woodpecker with a beautiful red feather. just a little example of how you can tie in our stories in the curriculum. You can really use any sort of story. You could talk about red dancing on the paper as you introduce more and more colors, friends of colors dancing together to create new colors, and just to demonstrate a calm, wonderful, beautiful experience with color to your child. So when you present it to them and it's their turn, they're ready to absorb that color, soak it in. Now within the Waldorf approach, we typically start with just introducing one color at a time. So in the first week of our September curriculum, we just introduce the color red, and it really preserves this beautiful, wholesome color experience for the child. And then we'll introduce yellow, blue, maybe 2 colors at a time, and then by the end of the year we're introducing all 3 colors, and the children can begin to experiment with how those colors mix and what happens when colors overlap. So there you have it. That's a little bit about how we prepare our wet on wet watercolor within Waldorf tradition and within our Wondergarten curriculum. It is a lovely experience, and I really encourage you to try it out. As I mentioned, all of these supplies are included in our supply kit on our website, so if you're following along with our curriculum this year, you can get that kit. And if you're curious about how to set up your wet on wet, I hope this was helpful to help you get started with confidence this year. So I hope you all have a lovely day and happy painting, and we'll see you again next time.